that may be done internally versus taking $125,000 from the RDA. That's really all we're talking about is, there's $600,000 in appropriations there. Maybe by some adjustments or things and reallocating some of these projects that we do, maybe we can do that funded internally and not having, I guess there's always the option if we have to use $100,000 from the RDA, but I don't think we really have to do that. I think we can manipulate it and come up with that money funding internally.
Okay. I hear opposition from one supervisor. Is there opposition from another supervisor to moving ahead with this direction?
Excuse me, were you calling my comments opposition?
I took it as that, yes.
No, they were just sort of
Comments?
piggybacking on Supervisor Kofek's comments, and then Supervisor Pinch's that said he felt that that's what he was asking the CEO to do, was to look internally to look at how the dollars could be found. So it isn't objecting.
Okay, all right. Well then, hearing no other objections, clearly stated, that'll be the direction towards CEO to come up with a plan and come back to us.
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
And that'll be in the near future?
Yes.
So, and if I could just restate it to make sure I understand, it would be working with the water agency director to come up with a plan, and both what's here as well as what might come out of that discussion would not require any change in the budget, because we're already planning to put the Mill Creek funds in the contingency fund, and as much money as can be found in the water agency budget, you've got that, and then the RDA is completely separate, and as I understand it would be not a desirable source, but you could look at it later if that turned out to be the only other source.
The only other alternative.
Okay, so
I think everybody agrees to
okay.
that.
Yeah.
So I think the important thing is just to know that you don't have to mess with the budget on either direction.
Yes.
Great. Okay. The Fort Bragg redevelopment activities and funding issues we will look at in the future, continuing to work with Supervisor Smith. The discussion around necessity of funding 2 FTE for economic development activities, I think that question was answered, that there are definitely at least 2 FTE devoted to those activities. The identifying policy 33 is there. The Mendocino Arts Council 30,000. Over lunch we modified the spreadsheet, so when Jennifer gets back to it, you will see that 30,000 is now included in. Then in mentioning, questions to come this afternoon, another one that came up was necessity of continuing to develop electronic agenda management with the additional $25,000 that was put into the IS budget for that activity. And the response on that, it was included in the budget by what we perceive to be previous board direction, and you can change that in your budget deliberations. But if we move forward, it is a larger project, and the IS budget is the correct place to budget for that. The $9,000 that goes along with it is current maintenance costs and operating and et cetera, and therefore it's on what we have now, not the increased functionality, and we would want to make sure that was maintained so we didn't lose any functionality.
Okay.
Okay, the Resource Conservation District, their projects are similar to a list that they produced last year, but we've requested a new list, and I'm not sure when we haven't gotten it yet, but as soon as we do, we will provide it to you. We certainly had some discussion over lunch with Roland Sanford, and he indicated that as a result of Resource Conservation District activities, that the water agency had benefited by over $100,000 of funding, grant funding that had come to them for activities. Now, again, if you're looking at activities and what you're devoting to, but it was non-county general fund money that assisted in the overall mission of the water district. So I wanted to mention that. Funding for EMS. When I first wrote the answer on this one, that was when you work on the budget, it's like there's different overlays. So you start with overlay that you hope you can do, and then more overlays happen. And so my brain got stuck on an earlier overlay when we had been hoping that 100,000 could be set aside for EMS. And that turned out not to be possible as the budget continued along. But the Health and Human Services Agency has indicated that they are looking at $50,000 associated with their EMS program that could be able to provide some continuation of a subsidy for the EMS providers. So that should be that the budget would include $50,000 for EMS. For better or worse, we were very clear last year that what we were budgeting was a function of what we could budget at that time, and it was not an ongoing forever commitment. And then this year happened, and as you know, this year is really, really tight. So we do want to continue that relationship, and we are continuing to look for long-term funding. But this was all that we felt we could squeak out this year. So $50,000 for EMS that would be funded through mechanisms for HHSA, from HHSA. And then for the fire districts, we are including $50,000 for the fire districts.
Supervisor Pinches.
The EMS, would that be